Hey folks, in this episode I'm going to show you how to make this proximity extrusion effect here. We're going to make it in geometry nodes. It shouldn't be too hard to make. This is a relatively easy tutorial to follow. So without further ado, let's get to it. So open up Blender. We're going to go to Edit, Preferences, and under Add-ons you're going to search for Node and then enable the Node Wrangler here. Once you've enabled that, we're going to click this button here, click Save Preferences, and that will ensure the Node Wrangler loads every time you load Blender. I'll just close this window here. I'm in the Layout View tab up here. I'll then take my cursor to the bottom left until I see a crosshair. I'll then left click and drag up and open up a new window. I'll then change this window from the 3D viewport to the geometry node editor, and with my default cube selected, I'm going to click New. I'll then rename this to Proximity Extrude, and in my geometry nodes window I'm going to hit N to hide the end panel, and in my timeline down here I'm going to set my end frame to 240. I'll just take the group input, I'm going to hit delete, I'll then hit Shift A, I'm going to go mesh, we'll go primitives and we'll choose icosphere, and I'll pop that there. I'll set the subdivisions to level 2. I'll then connect the mesh socket from the icosphere to the geometry socket of the group output. I'll then hit Shift A, I'm going to go mesh, I'm going to choose operations and we'll select dual mesh, and I'll pop that in between there. I'll then hit Shift A, we'll go mesh, we'll go operations and we'll choose extrude mesh, and I'll pop that in between there. Maybe I'll just give us a bit more room in the node editor. This offset amount controls the amount of the extrusion. I don't want all the faces to have the same extrusion amount, so I'm going to add a random value. So I'll hit Shift A, I'm going to go utilities and I'll select random value and I'll pop that there. I'm going to keep it as a float and I'll plug the value into the offset of the extrude mesh. I'll set the minimum to 0.01 and the maximum to 0.05, just so they're slightly offset. I want to scale in these top faces, so I'll hit Shift A, I'm going to go mesh, we'll choose operations and we'll select scale elements, and I'll pop that in between the extrude mesh and the group output. Now if I change this scaling, you can see it's changing the scaling of the entire thing. We don't want that, we just want to scale these top faces, and luckily for us this extrude mesh comes with a top value here, so we'll plug the top value into the selection socket, and now if I adjust this scale you can see that we're scaling in just the top faces. So maybe I can set a scale value of, let's say, 0.9. I'll then take this extrude mesh node, I'm going to hit Shift D to duplicate, and I'm going to pop that after the scale elements. So with this extrude mesh here, I'm going to hit M to mute it, and I only want to scale these inner faces here. I don't want to scale these side faces. So with this extrude mesh, I'm going to hit M to unmute it, and we're going to use this top socket here and plug it into the selection of the extrude mesh. So now we're only extruding the top faces. And now with the last extrude mesh, we're going to set the offset to 0. So now I want to scale those faces in. So I'm going to take this scale elements node, I'm going to hit Shift D to duplicate, and I'll pop that in between the extrude mesh and the group output. And again, I only want to scale the top faces of this last extrusion. So I'm going to take this top socket from this extrude mesh and plug it into the selection of this one. And if I go into wireframe view and I'll reduce the scale, you can see what's happening. So maybe I'll set this to 0.75. I'll just go back into solid view. I'll then take this extrude mesh. I'm going to hit Shift D to duplicate, and I'll pop it in between the scale elements and the group output. And now if I increase the offset, you can see that it's extruding. As you can see, it's extruding all of the faces. We don't want that. We only want to extrude the top faces of this last extrusion. So I'm going to take this top socket here and plug this into the selection. And now if I adjust the offset, you can see exactly what's happening. Now I want these extrusions to be based on the proximity of another object. So I'm just going to add that object now. So in my 3D viewport, I'm going to hit Shift A and I'll go to empty and I'll choose sphere. I'll then hit numpad 7 to go into top view. I'll hit G, Y, I'm going to hold down control and I'll bring it forward 1 meter. In my outliner, I'm going to rename that empty object to proximity empty. I'll then select this geometry nodes object. I'm going to hit numpad 1 to go into front view. I'll just increase my geometry node window. I'll then navigate to my outliner and I'm going to drag that proximity empty into the geometry node window. I'll then hit Shift A, I'm going to go mesh, I'll choose primitives and I'll select mesh line and I'll pop that there. I'll set the count to 1. I'll then hit Shift A, I'm going to go geometry, I'm going to go sample and we'll choose geometry proximity and I'll pop that there. I'll then hit Shift A, I'm going to go utilities, we'll choose math and I'm going to choose map range and I'll pop that there. With this object info, our proximity empty object, I'll connect the location socket to the start location of the mesh line. I'll then connect the mesh socket from the mesh line into the geometry socket of the geometry proximity node. I'll then connect the distance socket into the value socket of the map range node, and the result from the map range node into the offset of the extrude mesh. On my geometry proximity node, I'm going to change this from faces to points. And with the map range node, I'm going to set the from minimum to 0.9. I'll set the from maximum to 0.5. I'm going to set the to minimum to 0.5, and I'll set the to max to 0.05. So now, if I grab this proximity empty object, I hit G, you can see what's happening. And with this map range node, the from minimum will act as your radial fall off for the proximity. But I find these values work absolutely fine with this scale. Obviously, if you change the scale of your object and apply the scale, you are going to have to adjust these values here. With this current setup, we are going to have a few shading issues. So you can see these edge creases here. You can see them here, and to fix these shading artifacts, I'm going to hit Shift A, I'm going to go Mesh, we go Operations, and we'll choose Subdivision Surface, and I'll pop that in between there. I'm going to set the levels to 2. For my final render, I'm going to set this to 4. I'm going to increase the edge crease to 1. I'll then go to my Modifiers tab over here, I'll click Add Modifier, I'm going to go Normals, and we'll choose Weighted Normals. I'll reselect my Geometry Nodes modifier, and if I increase the levels to 4, you can see that the normals have now tightened up a bit. Excellent. It's far from a perfect fix, but it's definitely an improvement from what we had before. I'll just go back to my render tab over here. I've got one more element to add to this, and that's to expose an attribute. So just take this group output node, I'll bring this over here, I'll hit Shift A, I'm going to go Attribute, and we'll choose Store Named Attribute, and I'll pop that in between there. The value I want to store will be this side value. So this is the mask for the sides of this last extrusion, and I also want to have the top as a selection. Essentially what this store named attribute is doing, it's capturing the data for these top face edges on these last extrusions, and we can use that as a mask in the shader editor. And now all we have to do is give that attribute a name. So I'm going to rename this to M for mask. Before we move on, it's a good idea to save your project. So I'm going to go to File, Save As, and I'm going to save my project as Like and Subscribe. Thanks folks, you absolute legends. And then click Save As. Before we move on, I want to animate this empty object here. So just for now, I'm going to take this subdivision surface. I'm going to hit M to mute, and that's so we get real-time performance. I'll just hit numpad 7 to go into top view. In the 3D viewport, I'll hit Shift A, I'm going to go empty, and I'm going to choose sphere. I'll then navigate to my empty data tab over here, and I'm going to increase the size to, let's say, 2. In my outliner, I'm going to rename the empty to rotate empty. I'll then select my proximity empty object. I'm going to hold down Shift and left click select the rotate empty object. I'll then hit Control P, and I'll set parent to object keep transform. So now, if I select this outer empty object, if I hit R to rotate, you can see that the proximity empty object is parented to the rotate empty object. With the rotate empty object selected, I'm going to navigate to my object data tab over here. I'm going to set my cursor to frame 1. I'll then navigate to the object data tab, and under the Z rotation, I'm going to add a keyframe there. I'll then skip to the last frame in my timeline, which is frame 240. I'm going to skip forward one more frame, which is 241. I'll then go to my object data tab over here, and I'm going to set the Z rotation to -360. I'll then add a keyframe there. By default, the animation interpolation type is set to Bezier. I want a constant speed, so in my timeline, I'm going to hit A to select all the keyframes. I'll then hit T, and I'll choose linear. And now you'll have a constant animation speed. In my 3D viewport, I'm going to hit numpad 1, numpad period. I'll then select the geometry node object. I'm going to take my cursor to the top left of the 3D viewport until I see a crosshair. I'm going to left click and drag across and open up a new window. I'll then change this from the 3D viewport to the shader editor. I'll just hit N to hide the N panel. I'll just delete this node group here, real metal colors. That's from a previous tutorial. I'm going to set the base color to black. I'll keep the roughness set to 0.5 for now. In my 3D viewport, I'll just zoom in. I'm going to hit Control Alt numpad 0, and that will align my camera to the 3D view. I'm going to select my camera. For the X location, I'm going to set to 0. the Y location, I'm going to set to -5, and for the Z location, I'm going to set to 0. I'll reselect my geometry nodes object. I'm going to select the subdivision surface in the geometry node window, and I'll hit M and unmute that. I'll now navigate to my render tab over here. I'm going to change it from EV to cycles. You can use EV if you like. I'll also change my device type from CPU to GPU. If your GPU device is grayed out, just go to Edit, Preferences, and then under System, ensure that you enable your GPU in here. I've got a GTX Titan XP, so I'm running on CUDA, and then click this button here, click Save Preferences, and then just close that window. And then you'll be able to access your GPU. For my sampling on my 3D viewport, I'm just going to enable denoising, just to make our life a bit easier. I'm going to select this proximity object. I'll hit Shift S, and I'll choose Cursor to Selected. I'll then hit Shift A, I'm going to go Light, and I'll choose Point. I'll just hit numpad 3 to go into side view. I'll hit G, Y, I'm going to hold down Control to snap it to the grid, and I'm going to bring it back 1 meter. I'll then hit G, Z, hold down Control, snap it to the grid, and I'm going to take it up to around about there. I'll just hit numpad 0 to go into camera view, and with that point light selected, I'm going to go to my light data tab down here, and I'm going to change the colour to pink, something around there. I'll just go into rendered view so we can see what we've got. Okay, I've still got the default light in my scene, so I'm going to select that default light, I'm going to hit delete, I'll select the point light, I'll then navigate to my world data tab down here, and I'll set the strength to 0. I'll go back to my light data tab over here, and I'm going to set the power to, let's say, 5000. I'm just going to select my geometry node object. It's not showing this material here, and that's because I haven't set the material in the geometry nodes editor. So my geometry nodes editor, I'll hit Shift A, I'm going to go material, and we'll choose set material, and I'll pop that in between the store named attribute and the group output. I'll then select that material. I'll reselect my point light, and for the radius, I'm going to set this to 2 meters. I'll navigate to my object data tab over here, and with the point light selected, I'm going to hit Shift D to duplicate. I'll hit Escape to snap it back in its original position, and for the Z location in your object data, I'm going to set this to -2. I'll then navigate to the light data tab over here, and I'm going to set this to like a blue colour, maybe something around there. I'll then hit Shift D to duplicate. I'll then change the colour to a warm white, something around there perhaps. I'm going to go to my object data tab over here, and I'm going to set the Z location to 0. I'll then navigate to the light data tab over here, and I'm going to set the radius to 0.25. I'll also decrease the power to 100 watts. I'll now reselect the geometry nodes object. I'll increase my shader editor. For the roughness, I'm going to set this to 0.6. I'll then hit Shift A, I'm going to go shader, and I'll choose metallic BSDF, and I'll pop that there. I'm going to change the base colour tint to like a gold colour, maybe something around there perhaps. I'll then drag that base colour into the edge tint. I'll select the edge tint, and I'm going to reduce the saturation to around about there. I'll also set the roughness to 0.333. I'll then hit Shift A, I'm going to go shader, and we'll choose mix shader, and I'll pop that there. I'll then plug the metallic BSDF into the bottom socket of the mix shader node. And now this is where the attribute M comes in handy. So I'll hit Shift A, I'm going to go input, and we'll choose attribute, and I'll pop that there. And for the name, I'm going to type in M. This is case sensitive, so for the store named attribute in your geometry nodes tree, I've got a capital M, so I'm using a capital M here. I'll then hit Shift A, I'm going to go converter, and we'll choose color ramp, and I'll pop that there. I'll connect the factor socket into the factor of the color ramp, and the color from the color ramp into the factor of the mix shader. I'll change the interpolation type on the color ramp from linear to constant. I'll select the white flag, and I'll change the position to, let's say, 0.2. Okay, I think I just want to adjust the view transform to give us a bit more contrast. So on my render tab over here, I'll scroll down all the way to the bottom and expand color management. And I think I'm going to reduce my gamma to, let's say, 0.5. And I think I'll bring the exposure up to 0.75. There we go, we've got a bit more punch. Excellent. I'll just navigate into solid view. Next up is to finish animating the rotate empty object. So before I do that, I'll take this subdivision surface in the geometry node tree. I'm going to hit M to mute it. I'll then select the rotate empty object. I'll then navigate to my object data tab over here, and we've already animated it on the Z value. I want to animate it on the X value too. So with my frame set to frame 1, I'm going to add a keyframe on X. I'll then skip to the last frame, I'll skip forward one more frame, so we're on frame 241, and I'll set the X rotation to 360. I'll then add a keyframe there. Again, in my timeline, I'm going to hit A to select all the keyframes. I'll hit T and we'll choose linear. Now the final step, we just need to parent our lights and our camera to this rotating empty object. So I'm going to select this lamp. I'll hold down Shift and left click select this lamp. I'm going to hold down Shift, left click select this lamp. Hold down Shift, left click select the camera. And finally, hold down Shift and left click select the rotate empty object. We'll then hit Control P and we'll set parent to object keep transform. And now if I hit play, you should see that everything is following that rotate empty object. Excellent. So I'll just skip back to frame 1. I'm going to hit numpad 0 to go to camera view. And if I hit play and I'll skip close to the end, you should see that it loops seamlessly. Excellent. I'll just select the geometry node object. In fact, I'm going to go to my outliner and I'll rename that object to level up, you legend. And with that object selected, I'm going to go to my geometry node window. I'm going to select the subdivision surface. I'll hit M to unmute it. I'll then navigate to my render settings over here. I'm going to set my noise threshold to 0.025. I'm going to set the max samples to 2048. I'm going to expand the light options. I'm going to disable light tree. I'm going to go to light paths and I'll also disable reflective and refractive caustics. I'm going to select my camera. I'm going to go to my camera tab down here. I'm going to enable depth of field. I'll just go to my object data tab over here. With my camera selected, we can see that we're negative 5 meters away from the center of the origin. So if I hit numpad 3 to go into side view, we take away 1 meter. So we're actually negative 4 meters away from the surface of this object. I'll navigate back to my camera data tab down here. And for the focal distance, that will be 4 meters. I'm going to set the f-stop to, let's say, 0.3. And I'll increase the blade count to 16. I'll just hit numpad 0 to go into camera view. I'll then select my output tab. I'm going to change my frame rate to 30 frames per second. I'll also enable render region. Under output, if you click this file icon and choose a file location where you want to save your image sequence and then click accept for this render, I'm just going to choose a file format of PNG set to RGB and 16-bit. If you want a bit more dynamic range, you can change this from PNG to OpenEXR with a codec of DWAA lossy, and that will decrease your file size whilst increasing your dynamic range, but I'm just going to go with PNG for now. I'm going to scroll back up to my render tab. I'm going to select my geometry node object. I'm going to hit Control S to save the project, and then it's simply a case of hitting Control F12 and that will render out your image sequence. Join me on Patreon as a free member and you'll have access to this file alongside other Blender files from previous tutorials. That's the tutorial in a nutshell. I hope you found this useful. If you did, please click like and subscribe. It really helps my channel. Have a great day, level up, and thanks for watching.